Da, 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 da. I'm the grizzly bear. Whoa! I'm a grizzly bear. I'm a grizzly bear. I'm a grizzly bear. Farts, 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 farts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Hey, it's Sunday night here, November 27th, 9 o'clock-ish. We are live on the bitter end. I am Riggs, and I'm joined, of course, by the Turn and the Wog. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening. Is the Barney the free American public trying to whiplash to freedom, but held down by the man?
I don't know. Macy's Parade, 1997 or something.
He just wants to be free. He wants to be free. What's up, gents? What's going on?
Recovering from turkey coma.
Oh yeah. Tryptophan is it's a hell of a drug. So Turn. What is a notant notable from last week? Give me your take.
From last week?
Yeah. We were on it's been a week. What do we got?
I don't know. I think I've successfully avoided the White House's talking points during Thanksgiving dinner. So
right.
That was
right.
That was good. That was good. So no, I mean, other than that, I mean, I think the thing that sticks out in my mind and it just popped in my head. So obviously that's what I'm going to go with here. Was
let's go.
Last week was Dr. Fauci's goodbye press event, wasn't it?
I saw something about it, but I can't even bring myself to click on that crap. So
wear your mask and get your booster shots.
Yeah, and I saw the headline the latest booster is really good for keeping you out of the hospital, and I'm like, what? Why? Is anybody in the hospital for COVID now? I'm sure there's a handful, but
well, I just, I mean, for the guy some of the chutzpah it takes to, do a goodbye press conference.
I don't get it at all.
I mean, you think, some of these people, it seems, they would slink away into darkness, The Homer
Many of them
Simpson,
have.
GIF, where he melts.
Yeah, back in the just sink into the bush.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the fact that a lot of these people don't, just blows my mind.
It really does. It really does. It's not. It's not. I don't know. The
gain of function research, not a good idea.
Yeah, well, it's all the stuff that everybody like Trump is crazy for saying these things, and it's all true. It's all true. But anyway, we don't have to sit here and harp on Fauci and boosters and Omicron and Deltacron and the RSV outbreak, which is hilarious because RSV is a fairly standard thing, but you lock kids away for 2-3 years and then, what do you know? They can't handle a bug. Like it's everything that everybody was afraid of on our side of the fence is all coming to pass, But what do you think about the? But just one. I guess I said we don't have to talk about it. But one step further is Biden signed this thing multinationally about a vaccine passport and trying to set up a framework for that. Thoughts?
Guys, it's they never take their foot off the gas.
Nope.
It's that.
Things have already changed, and they're just deaf to all of it, right? It's like, yeah. Anyway, it's like where do you go from here? It's like it gets back to our previous conversation. I don't know. I've had a lot of some time off. Taking the gas pedal off of life for a little bit and thinking and being with the family this week with Thanksgiving and all that. And I posed the question. I sent you guys the question in our little text group thing, but where do we go from here? So interesting story. I was with my wife's family and we're all sitting around the fire and I'm throwing out there, where do we go from here? And they're all, uber Catholics, lots of kids, lots of things going on. And it's the response was generally, fight the good fight, but understand it's all coming to ruin. And that was an interesting concept that I took from that conversation. And then I've been watching a lot of Jordan Peterson lately. Super smart guy. I don't know if you've watched him very much. And then it just so happens that today's readings in Mass were about the flood, right? So my current hypothesis, I guess, in navigating our way through life as family men and upstanding citizens and all the rest of it, where do we go from here? So the one side is you keep entering this mire, you keep fighting this fight with the risk, understanding that one side plays by a certain set of rules and the other side plays by another set of rules, and in general neither side it's all politic. It's not, it's nonsensical almost, that the rules don't jive. There's discord between certain sets of rules on one side and the other, right? So there's all this cacophony, right? So do you continue to play in this game, or do you sort of take a step back and go, well, I know who I am and I know who our family is and I know who my, we'll call it a tribe, like your close people are, and that doesn't mean necessarily people that agree with you, by the way. It means people that are close to you. So you can disagree on subjects, but not shoot each other in the face, right? You can be true Americans and say, I think this, but we're still going to hang out and our kids can hang out and I believe this and you believe that and it's all good. I just had dinner tonight with good friends of ours that live close by that they're very different than us. They think very differently than us. It's fine, but that's the way things should be, right? So do you just take a step back from all of this mess and mire and disgusting whatever it is, from whatever angle you're looking at it, it's disgusting, right? So you just take a step back and you say, well, I know where I am and I know where my family should be, and I teach my kids to be survivors and basically survive the flood. Okay, so the flood will come, whatever that is, in whatever way it comes, whether it's world war or polar ice caps melting, whether it's man-made or not, or some sort of meteor shower that peppers the earth with all kinds of nuclear bomb-worthy threat, that's totally out of our control. So you look at all these things, and you say, well, I'm at peace with who I am. I'm at peace with who my family is. Raise my kids to be survivors, function respectfully to others, right? That's the big supernova. Can't stop the supernova. But you get through. What do you teach the kids? You teach the kids to get through life, be respectful to others and other people's way of thinking, but stand resolute in your own thinking and in your own beliefs. Don't I guess I'm jumping to my own conclusion here, but don't succumb to the pressures and the thinkings of others just for the sake of fitting in. Because one thing that was watching a lecture on Jordan Peterson last night, and he was talking about the true original American way, about being a true marketplace of ideas, meaning each person, each citizen, each human thinks for themselves and comes up with something that's best for all, right? It's not the one person or one doctrine or one set of rules or rubrics or the antithesis thereof is the right way. It's that the human American construct of equality between people and the freedom of ideas is truly marketplace, right? And when you look at that, it's really hard, right? It's really hard. People would rather say, tell me what to think. People would rather say, I believe in this structure. And that's where, like, it's down to a point where it's like, even this identity politic is so pervasive. It's like, I like IPA beers. No, F you. I like PBRs. F you. I like stouts. So, like, are you serious? You're fighting about what kind of beer you like. Like, this is ridiculous. This is the stuff that people are just so spun up about that doesn't make any sense at all, that is divisive and creates these unnecessary, insane tensions that just simply shouldn't exist. And so, when you put the Wayback Machine on and you look at this and you realize that we're all being idiots and we're all succumbing to this, like, fandom of one side or the other or the other or the other, whatever those things are, right? I mean, I'm not saying there's even two sides. There's two major sides, but there's a lot of sort of subgroups within those sides, etc. It's identity politic, and it's destroying not only the country but all of humankind. So do you sit there and try to fight that fight against another couple of billion people, or do you just hold your own? More or less build Noah's Ark in your mind and go from there and let the flood pass you by. I don't know. So anyway, I've just hogged like 10 minutes of time or more probably. So I open the floor, gentlemen.
Well, I mean, to take a step back from the apocalypse, I would like to see normal being, before we start mandating international COVID. Can we possibly have like a lessons learned? Is that possible after, like,
not anymore? That's what I'm saying.
I mean, like, what happened to stuff like that? Like, let's just take a look at how everything went, what went good, what went bad. But there's none of that. It's 100 foot on the pedal, 100 miles an hour over the cliff, and we used to do things like lessons learned. How do you know? And it just blows my mind.
You'd have to acknowledge where you made a mistake first, and talking about Fauci and his farewell tour, before he's unwilling to do that. So he was on TV this morning, and the question came, well, do you think there'd be lockdowns, this year with the caseload if it goes up again? And he was hemming and hawing about that.
That's exactly Riggs. Like, that's the thing.
There's no chance. There's no ability for introspection or anything like that. But
that's permeated everything in public life.
100%.
What happened to that? When did we lose that?
Well, I think it's more the machine that's behind the Faucis. You know, honestly, I don't know Fauci. I don't know him. Do you know him? I don't know him personally. I don't know what kind of person he is. I actually couldn't tell you what kind of person he is. I can tell you what kind of machine is driving him and everything behind what it is that is being driven. It's not good. It's a machine.
Carol Markowitz was on the Warpath earlier after seeing that little bit on whatever news channel he was on this morning, because basically saying, well, I was willing to kind of give the benefit of the doubt that it could just be, stupidity and ego and all these other things, but it's basically evil, at this point, that you're willing to, the correct answer is, well, what we learned over the last 2 years is that the lockdowns, particularly with school children, had a negligible effect on reducing caseload, blah, blah, blah. And we should never, ever do that again. And
well,
he was unable to deliver that message.
Can I throw something at you, Riggs? So I lament for our industry, engineering, right? In our industry, you and I, in the turn, he's not really in engineering per se in the way that we are in terms of design and implementation, et cetera. But our industry has 100% been bought, except for people like you and me, hook, line, and sinker by contractors and vendors, right? So if you extrapolate that to the other side of the medical industry, right? They've been bought hook, line, and sinker by the vendors and the manufacturers. It's a direct translation. They don't care anymore.
I was
going to say, who's paying the bill?
Yeah, I would have said, I would take it even a step further, is that those professional industries are being sacrificed at the altar for diversity, inclusivity, and equity. So
I don't even think that's. I think I think that is a leverage. I think that's a crowbar that people are using to break it open for the other side. But I don't think that's the modus operandi. I think the main modus operandi truly is profit. And then tearing down of corporate structures is done through
they don't care about profit. Nobody cares about profit.
No, you bet your ass they do. They want the money. They're going after the money. And as soon as they destroy, it's like a locust, right? So
when you drive something into the ground, there's no money. So exactly. I'll always go back. To the next one. I'll always go back to my comic book habit, and you have a group of social justice warriors that have infested a company like Marvel, a company like DC Comics, have murdered it, and they're wearing its skin as a costume, and they're pumping out trash comic books every week, but there's no profit in the industry anymore. It's been completely destroyed. There's no value to the publishing business that Warner Brothers or Disney owns now. It's purely a farm for intellectual property so they can make the movies, but they still have this other industry that's limping along on life support, just because people go out and buy. They have a habit, and they go out and buy this stuff, and they go to their shop every week. And once those whales break the habit, then it all goes away, and that's why the stores have I mean, I think there were something like 2,000 or 3,000 comic book shops in the country, or probably more than that. I mean, I'm sure I'm getting the numbers wrong. Back in the 90s, when this stuff was on the heyday, you could walk into 7-Eleven, you could walk into a grocery store and buy this stuff. You could get the newsstand stuff walking down the street in New York City, and that is all gone. It's only the direct market, which is the brick and mortar comic book stores, and they've been completely decimated by this stuff, because these people, everyone, people are waking up and they're realizing, like, hey, there's no joy in this for me anymore. I have a $300 or $300 a week or a month or habit that I could do a lot of other things with that money. So they close their account and they never go away. So there's no profit in this. It's just wielding power. You
Well,
know,
that's
so
you.
all these
So
industries that have been infested by this, it's just wielding power, and that's why I got, you know, I think I sent you when I got the letter from the Florida Society of Professional
right,
Engineers,
yeah.
basically that the national NSPE charter or NCES charter rather, they basically took out the public safety, you know, clause and inserted the DEI clause, and Florida and a couple other states objected, and they got voted down.
Well, so that's so there's several facets to what you had just brought up, and we could maybe discuss each one. But you know, my thought is, you know, there's a lucrative industry, like you said, there was a profitable industry, the comic book industry. It's a great way to get into people's faces and implement the DEI thing for their objective, right? And they sucked all the money out of it, right? It's the same thing. I draw a parallel because I saw it happen in the cannabis industry. It's still here, although it is starting to change. Okay, so everybody thought, oh, cannabis, lots of money, we can afford to have, like, you know, the tits compliance teams and all of the DEI that you could possibly implement from day one, right? I mean, these companies were being founded, you know, right out of the get with massive quota systems, massive, you know, donations and implementations, and working with a lot of these things. And I'm not saying that the altruistic portion of that is bad, but what I'm saying is that they're all dying. You know, there's a huge infusion of money. The money flows to wherever it flows, and then they're all dying. You know, those companies that I saw that are not, or are being judicious or have smart ways of deploying DEI capital, are being successful, but are still heavily taxed. Okay, and not just from the federal government. We talked about the 280E thing before, but you know, here you're in this industry, you're expected to have a DEI component very strongly. So, and that's not the discussion, you know, what that means and all of the fit into cultural history and all that stuff is not what I'm arguing here. I'm just speaking about the fact that there is a big, large machine. You implement these policies, they don't go anywhere. You could argue why it doesn't go anywhere, because largely the marijuana industry is 99% owned by rich white men. You know, so what happened? You know, it's like, well, that's what happens. The oligopoly of the tobacco will eventually arrive just because of free market and whatever else. The other piece that, and I'm going to blank here for a second, but the other piece that you were talking about, the follow-on, is that what's the second part you were talking about? Not just the comic books and the link to another industry, but the fact that
well, I was talking about the professional engineers.
Oh, sorry. So the professional engineers is what I was just speaking about before. Is I really believe our industry has already succumbed to the pressures of pure economics and has been stripped of all the value by commoditization of engineering time. Oh, I don't want to pay for design. Oh, a contractor comes in, I'll do design build. Okay, cool. So I'm going to only pay the engineer whatever, and it doesn't really matter. So who gives a shit? So when the Professional Engineering Society says, you know, oh, you're supposed to have oversight over all this stuff, and then they're like, yeah, well, not really, because we're going to let the contractors run it and the vendors, and they're going to go, well, who cares? I mean, you know, diversity is more important than the engineer's time. It's the basing out of things that were important, right? So an engineer's hour, okay, used to be way back, even before our time, Riggs, that an engineer's hour was worth the time that engineer spent, just like a lawyer, right?
It's cheap insurance.
It's not just cheap insurance. You would go to an engineer to say, what should I do here? And that engineer should say, on your behalf, Mr. Owner, these are the different things that you can do. These are the pluses and minuses of each, and you can choose your, like, whatever it is that your business wants to do or you personally want to do. Like, you can tell me, I want to build $1 million house. I want to build $100,000 house, right? Or I want to build a $40 million power plant, or I want to build a $2 million power plant. Well, there's only so much you can do with that money, and there are different ways that you can do it, right? But an engineer is supposed to inform an owner, okay, these are the different things we could do. Let's talk about what it is that you want to do, and then get to a point where they can design you a solution that meets your business objectives or your personal objectives, is code compliant, is safe, and all of those things, right? But what do people pay an engineer for today? They pay him for drawings. They're like, this is what we want, draw it, who cares, right? Or you work for the contractor says, or the vendor says, here's my equipment, here's what I'm bringing in, I'm going to make 30% on the backside, and I'll buy you a beer and a lunch, or bring you to the ball game, right? I mean, honestly, the guys who get their equipment specified in the job, and I know, Riggs, you are 100% against this, but the guys that get their equipment specified in the job are the guys that bring the guys to baseball games and go out for beers and whatever, like the schmoozing part of it, right?
Yeah.
And
I hate
all that is
stuff.
I know, and you're way more against it than even I am. I say, yes, I will have a dinner with you, but then I'm going to tell you that I'm going to still put or equal, and I'm going to weigh all of the options, and I'm going to recommend to the owner what the right thing is at the end of the day. And that's the professionalism that an engineer, between the way you operate and the way I operate, I would argue that both of us ultimately look out for the owner's best interest, and that's gone. Absolutely gone in the marketplace. Nobody gives a shit about the owner. They care about their pockets, and they care about whatever it is they're going to do next. And for rank and file design engineers that are sitting in a design house, which are going extinct, by the way, 100%, those engineers sitting in a design house, they don't care. They're going to turn out the drawing for the paltry fee that they get, and that's it. That's it. So,
well, I think about it a lot, because I get it's funny because I get all the Glassdoor and the LinkedIn, job emails and stuff, and it's like, there's a vice president engineering position open in your area, and I let's see what it is, and it's some software engineering job that's paying twice as much as what I'm making, and I'm like, man, some of this stuff is just such crap, and I'm like, we're actually like responsible for like the public welfare, safety, buildings standing up,
the risk liability like framework for design engineers is ridiculous. That's why you end up putting belts and suspenders and bells and whistles and all the things on things, so you don't get freaking sued. But it's hard to do real engineering. Like, I know you and I will do it, but there are others, big houses, that worked for me when I was in the game, and people, I'm contracting out, and these guys, they have no idea what they're doing. No clue. But so they triple capacities on things. I mean, it's just insane, but it won't run right that way either. That. Anyway, we don't need to go down the engineering rabbit hole. We got the turn here to talk on other more salient topics. But your point, I guess I'm saying, is that the whole, DEI aspect to PE, professional engineering, is only, I believe, is only there because the profession has already been gutted.
Yeah, I mean, I would expect that from the architects, but the engineers, come on, we got to have a little bit of dignity.
Actually, the architects are actually probably more the upstanding ones. They have nobody to, like, how do you design a home? Well, we have this, like carte blanche, basic home, just stamp the drawings. I mean, I'm sure they do a lot of that too, but in general, architects are more involved, and engineers just plug and chug, or that's what they're expected to do, and it's not right. It's not right by any stretch of the imagination. But
I mean, I've come across. We early in our career encountered the outsourcing of the drafting work, but I've encountered competitors of ours that outsource everything.
Right.
So the only guys that are, I think we probably had a conversation about this 15 years ago, but the only guys stateside are the project managers, and they respond to that, house calls when something's wrong in the field. But everything is done overseas, and that's, much more competitive price wise, obviously, than
That's all
we are,
garbage.
or any our other competitors. But it's I could never operate that way. I'd go find something else to do.
Yeah, and that's actually where I find myself in a particular situation now, as I look, and I try to advocate on behalf of owners, because the market is so jacked up, and I've said this a lot, but in the cannabis industry, these facilities are built like crap, and the big players that are thumping their chests that they're the best, they're owned by contractors and vendors. And they're architects and engineers. And I'm thinking to myself, well, actually, I'll pose this to you, Riggs. Do I file? Like, I probably need to renew my PE, and I may have brought this up before, but do I file against some of these companies that are owned by vendors and have conflicts of interests for ethics violations in the states that they're operating?
That sounds like
100%.
that sounds like one of those questions in the ethics exams that you have to take for
Yes.
the biennial renewal, where it's
100%.
like, if you're made aware of X, Y, and Z,
Yes.
what should you do? So I'm not sure, probably.
I'm leaning towards doing it, because I'm actually sick and tired of it, because there are big outfits that have bought up. They've actually publicly, published. Well, listen, Urban Grow is one of the biggest ones. Okay. Urban Grow is a major vendor, and they bought an architectural house, and they just bought an engineering house, and they use them on every job. And they've deployed over 200 deployments where those architects and engineers sign and seal the drawings. So would you say that that is a major conflict of it? Oh, and by the way, all their equipment went into those jobs, right? So is that not a giant conflict of interest?
Yeah, it sounds like one.
Yeah, it more than sounds like one. I've been to a few of them, and they suck. So it's like, we need to get back off the engineering side of things, so the turn has something to opine about. But
yeah, but no, I mean,
Right.
what you're describing is pretty much any U.S. industry at this point. You just take the jargon and flip
he knows
it
all
around.
about it, from his conflicts of interest that he's
I'm sure. But mostly, I guess, Turn, if you want to jump in on this.
No, I mean it's the taking the long road toward every year of trying to squeeze every bit of inch of additional productivity, and pretty soon you're left, as Riggs described. You have a couple of people, everything else is outsourced, and you do it to a point where you sort of uncreate the business. The business can get knocked over with a stiff breeze, because you've hollowed it out so much.
But
But that's the state of our entire industry almost.
The white collar people, for decades have, it's not going to happen to us, as they watch the Rust Belt towns, descend into total derelict status, because the jobs are shipped overseas and the coal mines are shut down. Well, it's here for the white collar workers too. And now that you can get your medical help over a Zoom call, the doctors are probably all overseas too.
Yeah, I haven't seen that yet, but yeah,
I've known a couple of people recently that have gone overseas for surgeries. So. But that has a lot of factors. That isn't just the doctor. I mean, that has to do with our whole
the whole system is just jacked.
Burned to the ground. Yeah.
Well, that was the objective of the ACA in trying to force everybody onto a government system. I mean, let's be honest here. I in a special circumstance of leaving a fairly good benefit engineering house in New York City, and then going on my own and paying Cobra, and then finding actually an independent plan that was half the price with just as good a coverage on the open market system, covered me in a few states because I live on a border, covered me in both states, no problem, half the price, same coverage for my family. I had 2 kids at the time. Then ACA went into place. The same quote unquote plan from the same provider, and I'm not going to get into like specifics. it escalated probably 30-40%. I'd have to pull up the records, but it was significant, right? But the biggest thing is that being on the Pennsylvania border, the best closest hospital is on the New York side. Okay, and I actually called the company saying, "Am I covered at the hospital?" And the company said, "Yeah, you're covered at the hospital." And thank God I called, and I actually called twice just to double verify, because they actually recorded all those conversations. And when the bills came in for $80,000, $80,000 or $90,000, I called up again and I go, "What the hell is this? Y'all said I was covered here because it's a major national, insurance coverage." But when the ACA broke up, what nobody realized is that they state locked your plan, and they can't cover you going over state lines. And until like recently, I have a plan just now that is a high deductible plan, an HSA plan, but it does cover me outside the state of Pennsylvania. But it was hell. I had to go back. I was in a startup company. We actually had to go to an employment services organization to buy a group plan with our small startup of 3 people and pay crazy fees, but then I could get coverage across the state line. But like, nobody talks about stuff like this. I was directly impacted because while they did cover that, because I did call them and they did say, and they recorded it and they did say that they would cover me, they dropped me immediately with a newborn and 2 other kids at the time and my wife, right? I mean, you can keep your doctor. It's all good. Yeah, except the medical plan will drop you because you're going to see a doctor across the border when you live on the border. I literally look at the Delaware River, right? So, like, what the hell? I don't know. I don't know how we got down this rabbit hole, but this, like, all the professions have been destroyed.
It's
Destroyed.
the state of the almost every industry. And I mean, you guys are smart, but I
Except the lawyers.
I sure as heck half the time can't figure out the billing codes, the billing mechanisms, all the calculus that is. I mean, you go to the doctor and you get a 2-page Rube Goldberg machine of
Yeah.
And who has time to figure all of that out?
No.
It,
And quite frankly, that's
It's
also why
garbage.
I went with a high deductible plan, because it actually worked out that the deductible is the maximum out of pocket. So, okay, cool. I can throw money in an HSA. I can pay for the things. It worked out for me this year. They also have like an accident plan that you can buy. I'd never heard of this thing before, where you pay a couple of bucks a month. I'm not a couple of bucks. I forget what it is, $80, $100 a month. And you get a $10,000 policy that if you have an accident of some kind, kid falls out of a tree or off a cliff or whatever, or car accident, right? You get 10 grand. Like, it just boom, here you go. No questions asked. So if you have the maximum out of pocket plus the accident thing, if anything were to happen, you're covered. And then you just got to pay your way along in the medical system with the discounts, and you still get, preventative things and blah, blah, blah. So you have to like game the system, and it's not just like, oh, well, let me just continue my coverage that makes sense. I have to like run down all these rabbit holes, and they try to screw you every single chance they get. It's like, oh, this charged out this way. Well, why? What? Explain this to me. Oh, wait, we made a mistake. Instead of charging you $900, it should have been $50. Like, okay, well, what if I just paid $900? How many people do you do this to? Like stuff like that. You gotta. Oh my god. But anyway,
yeah, no, it's crazy.
the whole system's topsy-turvy.
So, yes, speaking of topsy-turvy, we were
Yeah.
discussing early that Riggs was reviewing Indiana Jones 4.
Oh, right. Yes.
So
we want to go back to that, sir.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
want to touch on something lighter for a few minutes?
Yeah, we've been pretty heavy. Yeah.
So I'm trying to find like something easy to make these short form videos on. Obviously, this is something that's coming in 10 months or so. This movie's supposed to be coming out, Indiana Jones 5. I think it's going to be terrible. I've been doing a little bit of homework on it, and I've paid attention to it. I mean, this movie was announced like 6 years ago, and it's still not out yet. So I've seen bits and pieces along the way, but since I've been looking into it now, my smart feed on the phone, when I open up Chrome, is like just flooded with these garbage tier websites that have, you know, the latest tidbits of news, quote unquote news about this movie. So I think I'm just going to make easy videos about it. So one of the things I said, you know, reading through these articles and, you know, giving my take on it and, you know, whatnot. So one of the things I said, and I think I said last week, and I said when I was, you know, kind of ruining your Thanksgiving with bad Indiana Jones takes, and I said in the 2 videos I put out over the weekend, was I watched Kingdom of the Crystal Skull once all the way through, and I haven't seen it in 14 years, basically. And I still haven't, but I picked it up kind of early on, you know, today, and watched probably 80% of it, I guess. So it's I think plot-wise, it's probably not as bad as I remember. Even with the alien stuff, it's more the just the goofy special effects. I think are probably the worst thing. So I know in the beginning, and I didn't see this part today, in all 4 of the movies, they have like a mountain or the Paramount logo kind of, you know, turns into a landscape, you know, mountain or something. So in the 4th one, it was like this horrible CGI groundhog and coming out of its groundhog hole. And that was, you know, what they had instead of some, you know, I mean, in Last Crusade, it was the part with when he's the Boy Scouts, you know, with the Boy Scouts, and they go, and so it was the whatever wherever they were hiking, you know, or on the donkeys, you know, that was in the 3rd one. So this one was a gopher hole. But the terrible red ants. I saw Shia LaBeouf swinging like Tarzan through the trees with a bunch of fake CGI monkeys. So that was pretty bad. And then the whole end sequence is just kind of, to me, it just kind of goes nowhere. Where the guy is the kind of the double agent guy is kind of leading the Russian bird, you know, to them. That's my washing machine, if you can hear that in the background.
Nice.
And then she comes and, I want to know everything. And then they give her all the knowledge and kill her and a bunch of other people. You know, they're supposed to be giving them a gift for bringing this skull back, and they end up, you know, killing everybody that's there except for the Indiana Jones and Marion and Mutt Williams and I guess the crazy doctor, you know, that they're with. So it's not as bad. It's probably not as bad as I remember. There's definitely.
Did they survive in a freezer or something at the end too?
No. In the beginning, he gets blown up in the. Yeah, I mean, that's goofy, but yeah, I've seen that part a bunch of times, you know, over the years. But you know, that's the thing everybody talks about. But all the other like big effect sequences are pretty terrible.
Not great. Right. Yeah.
You know, too.
Yeah. And that's supposed to be Lucasfilm too, no? Like,
well, that's the thing I was talking about, I think a little today, is that George Lucas, I remember this from, you know, when I was a teenager, reading all these periodicals that they would put out. And basically George Lucas is a big ideas man. And when he gets down in the weeds,
it's not good
in the creative like effort, like really putting his fingerprints all over it on the fine details. That's when things kind of go sideways, and he's surrounded by yes men. So there was his producer through all that time, this guy Rick McCallum, you'd see him in interviews. He'd be like, "Oh, George is just a visionary, and he's got these great ideas, and we see them come to life, and it's so wonderful to watch his creative process." But this is the guy that's supposed to say, "Hey, George, this is really stupid, and your fans are going to absolutely hate it, and you're going to get roasted." For this. So there was nobody.
Red Tube Media was like, "What is it with Ricks?"
Between Rick McCallum and they probably dragged him also too, right? So
yeah.
So
for sure.
So I remember as a teenager being like, man, this guy is bad news. He is just a yes man. Everything, all of George's like worst impulses are allowed to go through, because this guy is just being like, "Oh yeah, George, that's the best thing I ever heard. Everyone's gonna eat it up."
Just
instead of
fill
saying,
it with so much content that you're
understand
visually overloaded.
I understand the source material. I understand the fandom. I understand what they're expecting and what they want to see, and we can kind of lean into that. We don't have to give them exactly what they want.
Right.
We want them to be surprised, and we want to, come up with new things, and we don't want to just do this fan service, which is what they default to when people start complaining. But we can kind of thread that needle and give them some of the fan service, give them some of what they want, and then give them something new, but not something that's so absurd that they're going to vomit in their seats, while they're watching it. And there was never one of those guys around that was willing to, say no, or, maybe there were, and they just didn't listen to them. I don't know.
Well, I think they listened, that's what Red Letter Media always said, that in the original trilogy, there probably was a big wall that Lucas had to fight through, and that's why they were good.
He wasn't the guy. Excuse me. He wasn't the guy that was directing
doing all of
those movies.
Right.
He did the first one. It almost killed him. So then he hired help for Empire Strikes Back. He did the story, but he didn't write the script. He didn't direct it. And that was the most successful, probably critically, of all the movies that were made. And then Return of the Jedi takes a little bit of guff because of the Ewoks and stuff, but he wasn't involved in that either. He gave the story beats. He was the guy pulling all the strings, but he was not down in the salt mines, making these movies every day like he was during the prequels. He took the driver's seat in those 3 movies, 100%, and it really suffered for it. And then you've got a corporate entity that only cares about exploiting the properties now. So, well, I mean, you can't even say that, right? Because these Star Wars movies that came out, the whole thing was such a disaster with not having it mapped out with a plan. That there's an ironclad. You must do this. You cannot do that.
Marvel.
Here, well, like Marvel up until now, I think.
I
mean, I don't know what's going on there now. It seems to be losing a little bit of a luster. But yeah, like Marvel, you've got Kevin Feige who's saying, "Hey, here's your."
Is that how you say his name?
I think so. So he's got the they've got the roadmap, and you can't deviate from the roadmap. You have a lot of latitude to kind of find your beats within that roadmap, but you can't do anything crazy. And if you're like an art house type director or somebody who wants to do something unconventional, you're not going to be successful here. And that's why you always hear about these directors being replaced and writers being replaced. We had that with Star Wars movies too. Still do. I mean, they have this whole slate of films that's been announced, and they keep replacing people as they go. But they don't have that ironclad roadmap. So you have J.J. Abrams come in, who's going to do the first movie, and he's setting up all this mystery box stuff. And then they bring this other douchebag in to, kind of undermine all of that. And then he's got to come back for the third movie and kind of, put some patchwork together to fix it. But it ends up being just a complete mess. And now.
Still haven't watched the third movie.
Really?
I just, no.
Yeah,
I mean, same here.
I can't even say to do it because it's it doesn't really close anything. I mean, the whole thing was this Skywalker saga, and unfortunately Carrie Fisher passed away between the second and third one, so they couldn't do whatever they were planning. But they killed Luke off, right? They killed Harrison Ford off, Han Solo. I mean, that was 30 years in the making, but it was kind of silly the way it happened, and it was silly how they dispatched Luke, and it was you never got a moment in those movies where you had the three main characters like together in one shot. That was all I think anyone wanted. You could have done a lot. You could have killed them off, but you needed to have them there together interacting. That's all people were really looking for, I think. And
I don't know about that. I mean, I would have to
introduce. You're going to have to introduce new characters, but you want to have the Patton type thing, and
yes,
they didn't execute that well.
No, and that's I don't even think it's having those main characters on the screen at the same time. I mean, they did the whole CGI Leia thing for the second one, and I think that like whatever they were trying to accomplish with the story, they did just fine with that. But it wasn't about that part of it. It was about the fact that like the story didn't make any sense. And so like you're watching this stuff go on and you're like, it doesn't make any sense. Like Han's not acting like Han. Okay. Nobody's acting like it's like the same crap that Red Letter Media dredged up on the first trilogy, right? Or the prequel trilogy. It's like when people stop acting the way that you've known them to act, and it's the same as my beef with the whole ending of Game of Thrones. Like we don't even need to get into that, but like they set up all these story arcs, right? And they're arcs that make sense and are actually not that hard to sort of execute. And then they just throw them out the window and just do whatever the frick they want. I mean, it's crazy because you look at this and they spend all this time trying to build up a new.
You're tying these two things together, and the irony of that is that the creators of the Game of Thrones TV show, I'm pretty sure the reason they were in such a big hurry to get out of there and wrap it up,
because they were supposed to get into the Star Wars stuff.
They were supposed to do Star Wars. They were supposed to do Star Wars trilogy, and then they got fired from that. After season 8 finished on Game of Thrones. So
it was terrible.
It's a real irony. I don't have as much an issue with the Game of Thrones. I mean, I think that the last 2 seasons were bad. But
terrible.
The ending was the ultimate. I was ending
so
was
invested.
Bad, but the heel turn for Daenerys, was telegraphed from a mile away, seasons away. It happened too quickly. But it was, her going crazy and laying waste to King's Landing was not shocking to me.
It was done wrong. It was in the wrong context. It was in the wrong arc, and none of the characters around her made any sense at all. None of them.
My biggest issue was that where we leave off in the books 11 years ago, because he's still working on the next one. It's never coming out, but. He's still working on the next one. So where we leave off in the books is Jaime Lannister is on a major redemption arc, and they started it in the show, and then he went back to Cersei.
Anyway, and then exactly,
he's supposed to kill Cersei.
You wanted to see, even if he didn't kill Cersei, right? You wanted to see, like I would have loved to see Jaime with, this is going. Now we're going back. Anyway, I would have loved to see. Not with Brienne, but with Brienne in the armies on the dead, the sailors, right? Watching King's Landing burn and him having that pang. Okay, the tragedy. Okay, like a Shakespearean tragedy of him having loved Cersei so much, right? And then getting out and understanding how the world works, and then coming back and then watching her die, most certainly, and having that sort of Shakespearean moment of pain and of loss, like that would have been a real character arc. Doing what happened in the show, you're like, what the fuck? Like that doesn't make any sense at all, right?
Yeah,
like that's a simple thing, and I just I'm coming up with that myself. I'm sure there's things on the internet. I'm not reading any of that crap because it's too much of a time waste. But like that kind of thing is totally missing from the end. But that was all built up to be something so much more, and then it was just, and then same thing with the sequels. Like the prequels, I was jazzed up for. We've talked about this before. We were jazzed up for the prequels. You and I watched, I think, the first two movies together in
I think we
college.
saw all three of them together.
Maybe all three. I can't remember. When did the third
05
one come out?
05 was when.
Well, yeah, we probably watched them all, right? We probably watched them all, and I remember the first one. We were like, nah, well, there might be something here. Second one was like, yeah, maybe, and then third one was like, what? No, they didn't. What? And then I know you've taken a liking to the prequels. I still have not. I think they're a giant pile of crap.
I've taken a liking to the third one. The third movie, I think, is not bad. Not bad.
Well,
I have great scenes. There's some bad stuff in it, but there's some. It's definitely grown on me. The second one is pretty bad. I hate the retcon of Boba Fett. I hate the retcon of C-3PO, and
oh my,
much of that other stuff. But
the Boba Fett show is just a travesty of filmmaking. I mean, it's horrible. I love
turning him into like a clone, you know, and
then he starts talking. He talks so much. Boba Fett, who we like because he doesn't talk, and now he talks constantly.
So,
anyway.
But that reminds we kind of skipped around a bit, but my hot take on Star Wars is that the main character. This is another problem with the sequel trilogy, is the main characters are actually the droids. So C-3PO and R2-D2 are kind of the bumbling Rosencrantz and Guildenstern that kind of find themselves at the center of everything, you know, that's going on around them. And they were kind of, and I think, you know, Lucas had basically said something to that effect many times over the years. And they completely sidestepped that for the sequel trilogy. They were barely on screen at all. You know, so those are the main characters. Right. That everything kind of happens around them.
The more the narrator or the view of the watcher, right, or whatever it was, you know, they're seeing all of this come to pass in their life, and you know, they're not quote unquote the main characters, but they are the main thread, as would be and I don't even know the right character in a Shakespearean thing, but you know, the herald, right, of a Shakespearean play would be the one watching all of this that comes to pass. And you have the main character of Macbeth or whoever it is, but the herald, or the character that takes you through the journey, isn't the main character. You're not in the main character's head. You're in this Greek.
It's the Greek course.
There you go. The Greek. There you go.
Yeah, let the smart guy.
And that makes. In. Yeah. I'm just a dumb like moron. But the point. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Turn is like the Greek chorus, like the third party non-participant that takes you through the story and the journey is totally missing from these other implements, right? I mean, it's wild that the storytelling got so bad. This is stuff that's like hundreds of years old.
How about we close the circle and go back to Indiana Jones for a second? and so, what do you guys think would be a good plot for another? Or
well, you obviously haven't watched my video, so my idea, and when they were talking about recasting Indiana Jones, which I'm totally okay with. Right, we have James Bond. There's been 7 James Bonds. You know, it's a big event every time somebody comes in and does a bunch of movies, and then they get old and have to replace that person with a new actor, right? So if you want to make stories with these great characters, you have to recognize that humans are mortal, and that Harrison Ford cannot continue to be a swashbuckling grave robber for eternity. So you have to recast the role, right? So they were talking about the name that came up more than anything was Chris Pratt, because I think he kind of has the look, and he's got a good comedic timing. I don't know if it's the same, as Harrison Ford's. Doesn't have that droll, personality, but they're actors; they can figure it out. I thought the kid in Solo actually wasn't as bad as people said. I didn't think, I wasn't watching.
I like that. It was entertaining.
I wasn't watching that for 2 hours to be like, who does this guy think he is? He's not Harrison. He's no Harrison Ford. You kind of forget after a while that you're watching somebody else, So my thought was they go looking for the Fountain of Youth, and old Harrison Ford goes into the Fountain of Youth, and Chris Pratt comes out of the Fountain of Youth, and then you have you're recasting. So
but then Chris Pratt would have another Lego minifigurine, and really,
then it's somebody else. I don't care, but find, have America's American Idol Indiana Jones edition, and find somebody.
I'm only teasing. I love me some Chris Pratt.
They're trying.
I don't even think you
have
to do. You don't have to do. I think also what's probably getting a little worn out is the time period. You can't keep doing the same time periods. So
that's why History Channel changed to the Alien Channel.
So, well, that's why Indiana.
It was the Hitler Channel, the Alien Channel.
Old Indiana Jones in the 1970s goes into the Fountain of Youth, and Chris Pratt, Indiana Jones, comes out in the 1970s.
No, I think you have a good story where you have. I think they weren't off with the Shia LaBeouf angle. But Harrison Ford becomes his dad, Sean Connery.
Right. So this
that, and then you
100%.
Well, that was the whole premise of the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles TV show, was you had the old guy sitting on the bench feeding pigeons, like Forrest Gump telling stories of his adventuring days, to whoever was within earshot, right? So. You could still keep Harrison Ford in the loop, and he made I think a couple appearances on that show. They did like a 1950s stuff where they had Harrison Ford guest appearance, but that's what you'd have to do. But they're gonna Indy is at his best when he's fighting Nazis and looking for some Judeo-Christian relic, so now we're going to get to.
It's simple. It's black hat, white hat.
Yeah. So then, what's the next MacGuffin?
Well, it's the time travel thing. That's what they're. That's supposedly what's happening in this.
In our imaginary plot world.
In a good story.
Yeah, but that's not the Judeo-Christian. I'm talking about what if you want a good plot. And you suggested a Judeo-Christian relic. What would that relic?
You have to fight Russians.
Yeah, but the Raiders of the Lost Ark was the Ark of the Covenant, and then you've got the we'll skip over Temple of Doom, though I like that movie, and we'll skip over that for the moment. Then you've got the Chalice, so the Holy Grail. So what's next? Do you pull from
was the Spear of Destiny? Was that the Wolfenstein game?
Yeah, right. You could come up with any number.
I think Hitler was looking for, is probably a good bet, right?
Right. The who knows. I don't know what the perfect thing would be. If it was in the time period, then it would be like the race for I got one. Leonardo da Vinci's secret notebook about how rockets work. That the Nazis wanted so they could create the rockets to bomb England. Boom. I don't know. That probably doesn't exist, but
we're back in World War II.
Well, you're talking about Indy, right? So, you're back.
Well, we're talking about old Indy. old Indy.
Yeah,
So he,
yeah, old Indy.
so they're using this supposedly they're using this space program Nazis as the link to get back to the real Nazis, in
Right.
in the 1940s.
Okay, so
So the article I saw today was that the de-aging is going to be we're going to start the movie with a young Harrison Ford in the 1940s during World War II, and that's supposed to get everyone right into it. This flashback, it's going to be like, oh, they found this footage in a Lucasfilm warehouse somewhere up at Skywalker Ranch, but
no CGI.
What? Well, right, but it's supposedly so good that it's creepy, and Harrison Ford is quoted as saying, "Oh, I don't even want to know how they do it." It's probably not, right?
Not.
If they're saying that, it usually means it's probably not, right?
It's probably as good as the deep fake shit on your iPhone.
What was it the stuff with the Mandalorian where the dude in his basement did a better job than the?
Yeah, there's been some super bad effects in all this stuff. Well, it's probably Boba Fett. Boba Fett was horrible. The special effects are just awful. You're watching, you go, I can see the computer thinking about this.
Well, I think the Kenobi show was really.
I didn't watch it.
So it really showed the limitations of the stagecraft, system they're using on these Disney shows. So, are you familiar with how they make these?
I am not, and I've unsubscribed.
Well, okay, but people have been talking about it, for the last 3-4 years. This pioneering way to shoot these things quickly is basically instead of a blue screen or a green screen, they have, and I don't know how they get it to look the way it does. You would think it would be jump out at you as being totally obvious, but they have giant plasma screens that they're working in. They're working in front of giant plasma screens that show that project the background. So that's how they're able to scene cut so much. So in Kenobi, when they're running through the city, I think in the first or second episode, when he's saving Princess Leia, it's this really kind of slow and labored chase scene. The was it Boba Fett where they had the scooters?
Oh.
The Power Rangers scooters. So that was kind of the same thing, that they can't really shoot at high speed because they're only in a confined area that they have to work in. So it's really, really limited when you're trying to go for scale. So there was a really good shot. I think it must have been the Boba Fett episode where he had the Mandalorian when he went back and met with the armorer. Was that in Boba Fett or was that in Mandalorian season 2?
That was in Boba Fett when the Mandalorian took over for a couple episodes.
When he's injured and he's walking gets in the elevator and goes up and then walks out. So that was a big triumph that they were able to film that in one take, because they're so limited with what they can do. It's great for anything stationary, but anytime there has to be movement or a sense of scale, I guess it causes a lot of problems for them because you're only on a soundstage, so you can't instead of shooting on location, you're shooting at a soundstage that looks like you're on location when you watch it on the screen. So, and I guess the actors can interact with the surroundings because instead of the big blue tarp, it's you're actually seeing a cantina with patrons in it, or a desert mountain with stormtroopers in the background or something. So it's pretty cool, but it's limited, I guess, and I guess it really pops up as being super limited when anytime they have to move anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's all crap.
Yeah,
it's all crap.
Well, we're on the topic of movies. I did not watch Top Gun yet.
Oh, it's good.
So it's coming on Paramount Plus on December 22nd. So I'll probably wait until then.
It's fantastic.
Okay.
I would the Top Gun Maverick, right? Are you talking about?
Yeah, that was my homework for this week that I didn't do.
Yeah, well, I would listen. Don't take it lightly. Watch it on a screen. You're going to thoroughly enjoy because it is worth it. I watched it on a plane, and I was like positively giddy on the plane watching this movie.
I watched a couple things this weekend. I watched Damnation Alley.
What is that?
Damnation Alley is a Fox feature film starring Jan Michael Vincent and George Peppard from the A-Team, and also Jackie Earle Haley, who was the Bad News Bears like kid, and also he was what's his bucket from Watchmen, the Rorschach.
Yes.
So he's obviously a kid. So this movie came out in 1977. And it's all tying together. It's all tying together. So this was the movie that Fox had all their eggs in the basket. And they were like, this is going to be our blockbuster, Damnation Alley. Yes, it's post-apocalyptic disaster movie. It's going to be totally badass. We have this weird sci-fi movie, this kind of like guy who did American Graffiti he's working on. We don't think it's going to really work out for us. So we got this other movie coming out. But Damnation Alley, that's the one. That's the one that's going to be our ace blockbuster, and nobody knows, nobody even remembers it. So you may remember. Let me see if I can pull this up. So I watched it. It was actually on YouTube. The whole movie. So
wow.
So this was, if I do a screen share, so they had, okay. So they had this awesome prop in the.
You made me watch this.
Did I? I haven't seen it in so many years. So basically, we get the two main characters are in a bunker somewhere in the Mojave Desert. They're Air Force guys, missile silo, sneak attack by the Russians, counterattack by the United States, mutually assured destruction. The Earth shifts off its axis, and civilization is essentially destroyed. There's all kinds of crazy weather. There's
supernova. Take us now.
Everything's been turned to dust. There's giant radioactive scorpions. There's killer cockroaches. So these guys are kind of living at the Air Force base. The Jan Michael Vincent character, and I can't remember the other actor's name. He's been in some other stuff. I think he was in Terminator. He's a black guy. I think he was one of the doctors or something. In maybe Terminator 1. Anyway, so those guys, they leave the Air Force. They're still living there, but they're kind of like, yeah, party man, do whatever we want. But George Peppard's character is still very straight-laced Air Force officer. You know, they're trying to make contact with other pockets of civilization. They have the only signal they've ever gotten is from Albany, and it's just on repeat every week. It's the same message. So the plan is to go to Albany in these bad boys. The CEO of the base has become a drunk. There's an accident at the missile silo. The guy falls asleep with smoking a cigarette in a room full of gas tanks that are leaking. It blows up the whole place. So they have to put their plan into action. So they leave with the landmasters. So they go across the desert. They pick up a couple other survivors, including Jackie Earle Haley, and then the Earth shifts back on its axis, and they make it to Albany. But this vehicle is so cool. Like, they actually made it, and they spent like most of the budget for the movie on like making this truck that still exists. And
That's badass.
And then doing that, they did some terrible special effects to show like the crazy sky with the Earth shifted off its axis. But so I watched this weekend, and then I spent the last day watching various Gene Shepard things that I didn't know existed. I didn't watch the new Christmas Story, but I did see the another sequel that I never knew existed, and I guess there was a whole series of shows made for PBS, movies made for television, with Ralphie and his family, with all different. One of them has Matt Dillon as Ralphie.
Wow, really?
The one I watched that one today, and the one I found when I woke up in the middle of the night was Jerry O'Connell was Ralphie. So that was
wow.
Disney Channel Disney Channel PBS co-production from 1988, where they during their summer vacation to go to a cabin in Michigan, and
isn't Jerry isn't that the Shifters guy? What was the not
Sliders?
Shifters. Sliders. Yeah.
Stand by Me. He was the chubby kid in Stand by Me.
Yeah, Sliders.
So
cool, man. Well, we watched Men in Black 2, which was cool, and I realized I've never watched that movie before.
Oh, really?
I've never
I saw it when it came out, but
I've watched Men in Black 1. I knew that movie up and down. 2, 3, any of the rest of them, I don't think I've ever seen them. We watched 2. Interesting. Just a note about Will Smith. He's not good on his own. He's really good with somebody to bounce off of. So, like, the first part of the movie is super dry, and I was like, oh, man, this is not a good sequel. But then when they brought back, what's his name?
The guy who catches Harrison Ford and says he doesn't care. I'm talking about The Fugitive now.
Oh yeah.
I can't.
That can go next to the DeLorean.
Yeah. Anyway, the only time I saw it.
Tommy Lee.
Yeah, Tommy Lee Jones. So when Tommy Lee Jones entered the movie again from MIB 1 to 2, it spruced up quite a bit, and Will can catch his game. It's all good. Although I will say, I am a huge fan of the zombie apocalypse movie with Will. So it's like when he's trying to be cool.
Legend? You like I Am Legend?
I Am Legend. I liked I Am Legend.
I think that movie's terrible.
I love zombie movies, so it's one of my top 10 zombie movies.
Really?
Yeah, it is. It is. I liked it a lot.
I think it's like the third version of that book.
No, I understand that, and you have a passion for the
Omega Man.
I understand that. This is. I took it not in the frame of reference of the original because it's a different movie. Honestly,
the Omega Man isn't the original either. So I think there's an I Am Legend with like Vincent Price or something, and then the Omega Man came out with Charlton Heston, and then then the Will Smith one.
Yeah, the Omega Man is, in my opinion, a little rough to watch.
It's pretty weird.
Yeah, it's weird. It's a little rough to watch. I thought that I Am Legend was put together very well. Acting was very good. The cinematography was very good. The story was very good. Where it goes from there, never turn it into anything, which is fine. As most zombie movies are, but it's about the story of who they are and what they're doing and why they're doing it, and it played very well, in my opinion.
This is the
Last
original
Man on Earth. Yeah. That's right. You told me this. But it's like any zombie movie. Like there's certain zombie movies that are great, and there are a lot of zombie movies that are just like campy, super campy garbage. And I'm not about super campy garbage. I'm about a good story, like I'm gonna forget it's been a long time since I watched this stuff. Listen, man, when you have kids and then you can't watch scary movies anymore, it's hard.
I think 28 Days Later is my top.
28 Days Later is great. I am all about that. There are certain parts of that just don't functionally make sense, but if you just suspend your belief, it's okay, right? It's a fun movie. 28 Days for sure. I also like the original Resident Evil. This is hilarious, and Mila Jovovich because reasons. And then there's is it Dawn of the Dead? The one with the mall where they're all in a mall.
Yeah, I like that
Dawn
one.
of the Dead. That was a great
Is
movie.
that Ving Rhames in that?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, but Ving Rhames isn't actually in a bunch of zombie movies. I don't know if you know this. Ving Rhames is actually in a shitload of zombie movies.
Remake.
Dawn of the Dead. Yeah. But if you look up Ving Rhames, he's in a bunch of other zombie movies that I've seen, and it's like, yeah, not good stuff. But you made a good paycheck, I'm sure. But Day of the Dead was great, but then it didn't. There was a sequel, I think, but it wasn't good. I don't remember it being good. But I love practical situations, real characters, real life situations. What would a person actually do? In the situation, those kinds of things. And that movie fit the bill. 28 Days Later was pretty good, and what was the one with the British guys? The Dogs Don't Look Up or something.
Shaun of the Dead.
Shaun of the Dead. Love me some Shaun of the Dead. It's great. It's fantastic. It's good cinematography right there. Absolutely.
Do you watch anything good besides the Puss in Boots this weekend?
Christmas Story Christmas. I give a thumbs up. I give a thumbs up to both. Both were good. I mean, Christmas Story Christmas is a good thing to sit down in front of with the kids to watch.
Well, you
a lot of fan service.
Yeah, I think you mentioned yesterday about Puss in Boots that they actually figured out that they can still make family movies for children, right? So we saw, I'm assuming what was a flop from the Disney offering that came out this weekend, which was probably not made with families in mind.
Yeah, I saw the headlines on that. I don't even know what it was.
No,
so are you talking about the Puss in Boots where it goes to where Puss goes to, like, is this the one that's been out for a little while?
The Shrek one, the guy from Shrek, Antonio Banderas.
No, I understand who Puss in Boots is, but the guy that the movie that you watched is about where he goes to obtain something from the Griffin.
That's that's not every story is obtain something from the Griffin. No, he goes. I think it's called The Last Witch.
Yeah, but he keeps going back and he keeps going back and he keeps going back to get that. Yeah, that's. I mean, it's not new, right? It's.
Nah, you must be talking about something else. This is a new MacGuffin, I guess.
A brand new.
Yes, brand new.
Well, the Puss in Boots franchise, I've seen this pretty good.
Did you go to an early screening or something? Because I'm seeing it doesn't even come out for 3 weeks. This Puss in Boots movie.
That's. I didn't think we did anything special, but I will have to ask the wife. Really, that's what it's saying.
Release date December 21st.
I definitely saw it on Saturday. So
bullshit turn
from the future. Turn
Are
from
you
the
from the
future.
Are you from the future?
Yes. There is. I am. Have you guys watched Dark on Netflix?
No.
That's our latest binge when we have time to binge. It's pretty good. It's been out for a while. It's something that's not new, but it's called Dark,
Dark.
and it's a time travel slash mystery horror type of offering.
Yeah, our
It's good.
latest one was Ancient Apocalypse.
I saw that.
Yeah,
It's
my
fantastic.
I hadn't been on Netflix in some time, so I saw that Father Stu movie was on there the other day. So that was I didn't watch it yet, but that was I know we were talking about that months ago. Did you ever see it, Turn?
I thought that was all right. I know WOG had complaints about it, but I thought for what it was. I mean, you got to understand that they take artistic liberties with these things, um, from the true story. But I thought it was pretty good. I guess there was some complaining from those that are inclined to see a religious type movie about the amount of swearing, but I think that was some of the point of it.
Yeah, I guess to jump in, and this is not something that I know, but my wife apprised me to. Okay, so apparently Father Stu thought like they built this movie to drive Father Stu from his father and his mother and his background and his issues and all of those things to be something that he actually wasn't. Okay, so in reality, Father Stu loved his dad. In reality, his mother was the one trying to convince him to go to Hollywood because he was an outgoing person. He had been in multiple motorcycle accidents because that was his thing, was motorcycles. And through all of those, he began to see the light, but he was like, his family wasn't against him becoming a priest. His family wasn't against him going to Hollywood. His family was actually for all of that. And the movie turned all of that on its head and still made him into a priest, and the story that it told. And it
Wait. He did
Yeah.
become a priest, right?
Yes.
Okay. So that is true part of the story.
So the part of the story that is true is that he became a priest. Okay. Now the problem is that like it didn't focus enough on his what's the word? His time as a priest. It didn't focus enough on, as his time as a priest, what he did. It did a very short period of when he went to the prisons, and he was already like into being disabled and all of those things that he eventually went to, but they really should have spent more time in my opinion, in my wife's opinion, on his time as a priest. Because if you watch the movie, you would get a sense, if you were just a total layperson, you weren't looking at real history or anything, but you'd think that he was made a priest only in the 11th hour, only to suit the ends that was shown in the movie. But the reality was, he was called to be a priest. His family supported him to do all of those things. He was a little bit of a renegade as far as priests go, I suppose, but the point was that he was a renegade in his mission. That's the word I'm looking for. In his mission as a priest, in his outreach as a priest, and how he did things that were amazingly good as a priest that didn't get covered in the movie. A very, very short period of time. Like that one scene where he's talking to the inmates, right? or the couple of scenes where he's talking to small groups and stuff like that. That's a very small part of the movie, but a major part of his impact on humanity. And that's the beef that I have. It was watered down. It was watered down and was converted into something that it wasn't. Right? He wasn't a priest in spite of his father. He wasn't a priest in spite of his mother. He wasn't in Hollywood in spite of his family. None of that stuff was true. Like, so this is my whole point about character building, whether it's Star Wars or Game of Thrones or Father Stew. Like, if you're not telling the right story and you look at that, like, listen, Father Stew was made and it was a very engaging story. It was built to be an engaging story, but it wasn't true. So what you want to do is write an engaging story that is true, especially if you're going to write about somebody who is as influential as someone like Father Stew. It's my understanding that another movie is going to come out that is similar, but is more truth-based, but it probably won't get as much press because it probably doesn't have Marky Mark as Father Stew. Now it's not a mark against Marky Mark, a mark against Marky Mark, so many marks. But the point being that, like, you set up a story and you totally obfuscate the truth and you lose the overall message. Am I making any sense here?
Yes, and we will see if the Padre Pio one hits the mark or not.
Let's see. That's Shia, right?
And his return, yes, from banishment or
the brink,
whatever.
The abyss.
Yeah. Well, so wait, did Riggs see it or no? Yeah, I guess he hasn't watched.
What Father Stew?
Yes.
No, we haven't watched it yet. No, I was just remarking. I was surprised to see it on Netflix.
Well, I mean, listen, it's not a bad movie. It's certainly not a bad movie. Go, watch it on Netflix. It's good. It's a good time, but just know that that's not actually the story of Father Stew. So, well, see what's up.
All right. Well, maybe I'll watch that by next week.
Fair enough. Well,
All
listen,
right,
it's almost 11 here. There's lots of topics to talk about. We should probably go live another night this week. You guys tell me, or we'll sync up. But like the implosion of China, which is about to happen.
Oh, right. Okay, yeah, let's reconvene tomorrow morning or whenever and discuss when, and we can set that up.
Yeah. Listen, there's so many topics to discuss. Let's see. Preview, right? We got to do previews. Like, IRS hires 87,000 agents, or Apple has a huge problem on their hands in China, or The Chosen is a streaming hit. Imagine that, guys. A mini series that focuses on the life of Jesus, that is actually pretty factual and made with the intent of portraying Jesus as he was, is actually really good. And then inflation boosts U.S. household spending.
I can make a prediction.
Silver linings, guys.
I can make a prediction on the 87,000 IRS agents. So what's going to happen is the Republicans over the next 2 years are going to pass about 120 bills in the House to fire the 87,000 IRS agents that will be dead on arrival in the Senate and the president's desk. And then when they take back the Senate in 2 years and probably the presidency as well, suddenly they won't be able to have the votes to get it done. That's my prediction.
Yeah, so nothing happens.
On November 27th, 2022, that is my prediction for 2 years from now.
So we just wait for the flood. Is that what you're saying?
I was hoping for nuclear holocaust.
Yeah, that's a version of a flood.
No, supernova.
Supernova.
Oh,
Yeah,
why
no,
don't you come,
that's-
supernova? Why don't you come already?
Can you get rights to just play that? Oh man. Well,
I'm not sure how that works. You know, there's certain things you can get away with and certain things you can't get away with. And I mean, you can do an EFAP on that stuff.
I don't know what that means.
Every frame of pause. So you basically, you can show it and then do commentary. So it's fair use because you're transforming the content into something else. You know, so I guess,
Let's
you know,
do that.
we'll figure that out, you know, at some point.
Yeah, for sure. All right, gents.
All right. Are we calling it a night? All right. I have an outro script that's been prepared for me.
Wait, you have to read something?
Yes.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
Somebody got a gun to your head?
No. It's
This is a cry for help.
One of the daughters just wanted to help me. So
one tap for yes, two tap for no.
So
if we were on cam, you could blink in Morse code.
No, it's fine. So I did the countdown on the intro was the boys.
It's pretty awesome.
Playing around with the wife's phone, you know. So I cut that up to
nice. I actually really like that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
So I'll have to record this at some point, and you know, and stitch it into like a you know, just a clip that I get you know, add into run at the end or whatever. But I want to modify it a little bit. It's a little hinky, but I told her that. But all right, here we go.
There we go.
It's time to say goodbye, and all you viewers should remember to like, subscribe, and smash the notification bell so you know when a new Bitter End video will come out. And if you have time, check out the old Bitter End videos you missed or forgot. Now we will see you next time on the Bitter End.
Woo!
All right. Good night, gentlemen.
Don't
All
you
right,
have,
time
don't
to
you have
put
an
that,
outro roll tape?